In this video, we're going to dive even deeper into UV unwrapping. If you didn't watch any of the previous videos, I do recommend watching the video on what Texel density is, as well as UV unwrap basics. I'm going to jump into this one with the idea that you have watched and worked through those so you have an understanding of some basic concepts. So I have this demo scene with these models on it, and we need to fix the unwraps on these. So we have some issues where they're a little bit crooked, they're squished, the Texel density is just all over the place. So we need to go ahead and fix these. And I'm going to show you some techniques on how to do that. So this plane, this is a 100 by 100 centimeter plane with its Texel density of, we want to keep it at this 10.24. So it is set correctly. The problem though is that it got off a little bit. You see that? It's not perfect. And we could come in here and we could adjust it, but it's never going to be perfect back on that plane. So why don't we use some of our tools to help us with this? So I'm going to have this selected. Sorry if that blipped for a second. And what I want to show you of how we can kind of get that lined up is first underneath this transform, we do have step snaps just like before, where we can turn our step steps on and off so that if we move it around, it does snap evenly, but we're off a little bit. We can fix that right here, this move UV. If we set it back to 0.5, we can see that it moves it back to the center. If we then kind of click over, we can see that we're clicking it over by this 0.1. So, be mindful that we can help you, try out some of these tools and see what they do. We could also change its pivot position. So we could move this pivot point down here. Like, let's say we needed to rotate it. Oops. Let's get my rotate tool. Didn't mean to do that. Sorry. There it is. Change the pivot to down there. We could then rotate this. Keep in mind, we can also turn a step snap on for our rotation if we needed to. So there are a lot of tools to help us be very precise with how we place these. Okay, our plane is fixed because it is set to the correct one. We did get it lined up by setting this move back to the UV and learning a little bit about using step snap. Easy. This one too as well is fixed pretty well. This one is already kind of put around, but what if, oh no, do you see that? It's nice on this side, but if we rotate around, it's upside down on that side, and that's probably not the look we want to go with. Imagine that it's not this checkerboard pattern. Instead, it is like a brick, and it has like some shadowing on it, and if it was upside down, it would look very strange. So let's fix that. So this was kind of the default sort of unwrap that I got with this, but what I'm going to need to do is fix this back. So I'm going to select that plane. If I don't quite know where it is, it's right there. And I'm going to create a UV island out of this by holding Control-Shift-X. Let me turn that step snap off. And now I need to rotate it around. I can easily come over here. I'm going to set this back to a rotation of 90. So I can click. There we go. But I want to be clean with this. I don't like it floating in space. If I kind of keep it floating in space, it's going to be a hard time. Maybe there's like a nice seam there. I want to line this up. I want to make sure that it is tileable. So I do need to connect these back up. So I'm going to get my edge select that, do a right click and choose a cut sew move and sew to connect it back together. So now it's even all the way around. And the nice thing too, if I do have to slide this around along those corners, like it stays consistent. I also don't like this guy floating off into space too. I do want to connect it back up. I'll probably just connect it up down here. So right click then, cut sew, move and sew. And now I have a nice UV island of that. Let's make sure the textile density is the right one. I am going to come over here, make sure the whole thing's selected. I already set this correctly, so I can just set this, and it is nice. I can position this too if I want to. I'm not going to be too concerned with it not fitting directly on it. I might be able to just eyeball this one so that it looks kind of closer, like that. Something like that. It's not too bad. Okay, so we'll call this one done. Let's move on to this wall, and this wall has a lot of problems. One, it's stretched and it's rotated. So we're gonna have to do a lot of cleanup with this one. I want to show you what to do with this one if for some, generally your shapes are not going to be boxes or nice primitives. They're going to have a little bit more detail to them. So I'm going to kind of show you the method that I would do to do this. This box is actually the same as this one. So we could kind of use this as a guide for what I'm going to do. Honestly, if they are the same wall, it would just be better in the grand scheme of things that after we unwrapped this one to just duplicate this wall and just reuse this wall again because it's going to retain its UV unwrapping. You see that? But let's practice with this. So let me pull up that UV map. Oop, there it is. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to first select all my UVs. Hold on. Select all of them. And I'm going to delete them. So I want to show this to you too, so that you understand, like this might occur to you where you select something and you're like, oh, okay, I'm going to delete these faces, but you actually have your UV window selected, and I'm going to hit delete. And notice that it didn't delete my polygons, it deleted my UVs. They're gone. Be mindful of, if you are trying to select and delete things, that if you do have your UV window open and that is the active window open and you hit the delete key, you're going to be deleting your UVs, not your polygons. But that's what I actually wanted to do. Once I have them all deleted, I'm going to create them again so that I know that they're clean. So I'm going to select them, and I am going to go underneath UV, and I'm going to do a automatic. We'll do this one. We'll do automatic with this one. So I'm going to do automatic. And what this does is it kind of pulls it apart for you into, pull it back over, into individual pieces. And it'll pull it apart, but now it's kind of a bit of a mess because it's in all these little pieces. They're not connected, so we do need to connect them back together. So I'm going to start with this face. The first thing I'm going to do is rotate it the correct way so I have a better orientation. So I'm just going to click rotate. Oh, upside down. I always do that. Rotate. There you go. I'm then going to select this edge. Right click, cut sew, move and sew. Right click, cut sew, move and sew. Right here. Cut sew, move and sew. Cut sew, move and sew. Cut sew, and the final one, and we have that. We do have to be mindful though. There's one final step we can't forget. The Texel density is off. Do you see that? It is too low on this one. So we need to have it match these. So I am going to take this one and set it. And it'll scale it proportionally for me. I can set this where I want it to. There we go. Next, let's do this box. I'm going to show you another tool. Sometimes you might be lucky where your unwrap is pretty close. It just might have some stretching issues. Like this looks pretty good other than the fact it's stretched. So we don't necessarily need to start again. What we can use instead is the Unfold and Optimize tool. What this will do is take our UVs that we currently have and it's going to try to lay them out better so there's less stretching. So if I click Unfold, we can see it kind of wiggled a little bit. I usually also try to optimize it. Since this doesn't have a lot of edges, like smooth organic edges, it's not really probably going to do anything. See? A lot easier. I could go in and rearrange these if I wanted to. Like I really don't like how this is up there. But one thing I do want to note, it really bothers me that it's crooked like this. I want to fix that, but using the rotate tool is not necessarily the best method for this. Oh, I have that step snap on. Turn it off. You can eyeball it as best as you can, but it's never going to be close. The better tool to use if you need to kind of, tweak it a little bit is to come down here underneath Arrange and Layout. You want to click on, with it selected, Orient Shells. And it'll adjust it for you so that it is now as straight as it can make it. A lot easier than trying to eyeball that rotate tool. So let me also make sure that I set the Texel density. And notice this one actually shrunk down a little bit. It didn't expand it, shrunk it down. It might bother me. I might not like this layout. So I might come in here and do a little bit of rearranging. So I'm going to select that, Control Shift X to detach it. And I'm going to reattach it right here. This way, so I know that if I move this around, it's going to always be nice. It's going to always kind of line up on those edges, except for that one right here, but that's okay. Let me reattach this one now to the bottom. Just that cut so, move and sew. And we have a nice unwrap. The last one we're going to do is this sphere. So let me select the sphere. I'm sorry, cylinder. It's a cylinder. This is the default look of our cylinder that comes if you just use a primitive. So one way that we can do this, again, would be that Unfold, Optimize. Select, because it's pretty close, it's just a little bit squished. Unfold, Optimize. Let's fix this rotation. I don't like how it's crooked, so I'm going to select it. And I'm going to orient that shell. Notice though, Texel density is wrong. You see that? We have to make sure we fix that. So I'm going to select these. And then I'm going to set it. And now they are correct. One thing you might end up doing when you do cylinders like this is sometimes it is a good habit of, if this is going to be the same material, to kind of keep these together, I might actually reattach one edge. Cut, sew, move, and sew. Cut, sew, move, and sew, just so that it's easier for me to put these places. You don't always have to do this. Like if the top needed to be significantly different in material and texture, you might not want to attach it. But if this is just going to be like a stone cylinder where it's just a generic kind of stone material, this is a little bit better so that we can keep them together. We don't lose those pieces. There we go. We have fixed the scene so that the textile density is consistent. We no longer have any stretching or strange rotations on our unwraps, and we learned a couple simple tools. I will have at least one more video where I'm going to unwrap more complex objects.